This was posted a few days ago. I don't know if it's recent or an old clip. It's Ben Shapiro explains why communism is evil. So naturally, I want to listen to it. It's only like 2.5 minutes, so it can't be that bad. Or it could be awful because it's Ben fucking Shapiro, who's the most annoying more annoying person in right-wing media.
Hello, Mr. Shapiro. My name is Joey Stone. I'm from Vanden High School in Fairfield,
Joey
California.
Stone. That's
I was
the
just
guy's
wondering,
name.
what are your views on Colorado's new, I guess, option to push communism at all costs?
To push
communism.
Communism? Well, I mean, I'm not aware of the kind of provision that you're talking about in Colorado law. So I'd have to be familiar with what the provision is of law. Obviously, communism bad. Also evil. Also killed 100 million people. So I'm bewildered by people. I'm bewildered by people.
One, communism did not kill 100 million people from 1917. The Black Book of Communism has been thoroughly debunked. For example, it uses the death toll of Soviet civilians that were killed by Nazis to blame for Stalin. For example, it uses Chinese death toll perpetrated by the Japanese Empire in World War II as the death toll for Mao. And I don't know if anyone remembers this, but the two nations that suffered the highest death toll to the axis of evil was Russia, Soviet Union, and China. They suffered the highest casualties. And also China during World War II was not controlled by the CPC, but that's beside the point. They still attribute all those deaths to Mao, not the KMT party. Whatever. Also, if you know, the Holodomor is clearly an issue of Western sanctions killing untold people. The Golden Blockade, which was put on the Soviet Union, led to a massive famine in the Ukraine. And since then, there hasn't been famines in the Ukraine, similar to the famine in China, which even Mao attributes is some of his fault. The CBC has come out and said that some of it is his fault. That they list, I think it's 16 million people dying in the famine. That was largely enacted because they try to put European farming techniques in China, and they failed drastically. But guess what? There hasn't been a famine in China since because they fixed those issues as a party and as a country. So the death toll is far lower than that. And on top of it, 20 million people die from capitalism every year right now. Things like hunger, lack of clean water. 8 million people die from hunger. Around 7 million people die from lack of clean water. 500,000 people still die from malaria, even though we have malaria treatments that could fix that and eliminate that completely. But why don't we do that? Because of big pharma and capitalism. There's a profit margin there that we don't want to give up. So within 5 years, capitalism, just on the basic borderline shit like hunger and lack of clean water, kills more people in 5 years than what they claim communism has killed in over 100 years. So we're talking about which system causes more harm. It's clearly capitalism. It's clearly not communism, socialism, anarchism, whatever ism they want to claim for the left at that point in time. Like, this is just easily verifiable information. But it's Ben Shapiro.
Who are romantic toward communism. It is a gift of growing up in a one thing that all the communists who live in America have in common is that they live in America. Move to Cuba and then tell me how wonderful communism is without being a part of the prevailing regime.
Oh, you want to talk about Cuba, Ben Shapiro? You want to talk about Cuba? All right. Cuba, a tiny ass island in the Caribbean, which has been blockaded and embargoed by the U.S. empire for over 60 years, has better life expectancy, lower infant mortality, and higher literacy rates. The Cuban people live longer, have healthier lives, and are more educated and smarter than us in the US. So you can bring up Cuba any day, Ben Shapiro. That's an easy issue. Cuba, through all of the pressure that we have enacted on them, coup attempts, invasions, hundreds at least assassination attempts on their leaders, they still produce more doctors per capita than any country in the world. They still provide a quality of life that is better than us in the US because they live longer. Less babies die at birth than they do here. Think about that. More babies die at birth here in the US, the greatest country in the earth, the greatest country in history. More babies die here than a tiny ass fucking island in the Caribbean that we blockade for 60 plus years. Cuba's kicking our ass. What are you talking about, Ben Shapiro?
It's easy for Michael Moore to talk about the glories of the Cuban healthcare system while he has his WGA card. It's a little bit different when Michael Moore, would have to live there.
Michael Moore's not a communist. What are you talking about, Ben Shapiro?
Which, of course, he never.
And one story that you're trying to bring up, which doesn't make sense, it does not discount the data, the facts that you want to ignore for your feelings, Ben Shapiro.
Well, the people who are the most anti-communism in America are people who left communist countries, right, who actually lived in these places. There's such an inherent level of ingratitude in America right now. It's astonishing to me. People who are.
I wonder why a lot of people from the Batista regime in Florida don't like Fidel Castro. I wonder why. I wonder why like all the mobsters that had to leave all the casinos in Cuba like overnight because the communists were coming in and taking out U.S. illegal and legal businesses. I wonder why they don't have a fond memory of Fidel Castro and the communists. That's right. Batista also enacted slavery in Cuba up till the 1950s. Child labor was still enacted. There wasn't any infrastructure for the people in terms of hospitals, schools. The country was largely illiterate. Life expectancy was drastically low. But he doesn't want to talk about that shit, of course.
Born on third base and think they hit a triple. People who live in the most prosperous, free, and wonderful country in the history of the world, bar none, not close. If you could be born anytime in any place, you'd be right here and right now. You're guaranteed basically 8 decades on this earth of health, wealth, and ease. And you're sitting around going, it'd be better if we got rid of everything that undergirds this, and then we do stuff that's fair. And fair means what I like. Well, I'm sorry, but the world did not begin spinning when you got here. The principles that you hold are not unique to you, and your wealth is not a natural part of life. People tend to just believe that this is normal, that what happens in America is normal, that the norm of human life is this.
What?
That is so not only historically ignorant, but just ignorant of contemporaneous circumstance anywhere outside the West. If people actually had the ability to take a time machine, then they might be a little bit more grateful for what it is they have here in the United States. And fortunately, there is a time machine. It's called an airplane. All you have to do is take that airplane to a third world country, and you will quickly recognize that the United States is a damned phenomenal place.
Again, that third world country we'll keep talking about, Ben. Better life expectancy than us. And the fact that you brought up that we can live 80 long years, but one, we can't. Life expectancy has gone down in the U.S. in recent years. I think it's about 76 now. Cubans live longer. Again, you're just wrong there, Benny.